Hi, and you are very welcome back to the Final Whistle Women's National League podcast here on finalwhistle.ie with me, Breifne and Aaron, and once again, Aaron Clark joins me to dissect all of last weekend's action, put a couple of teasers to some of the stars of the league, and take a little look forward to next week's action. Aaron, you're very welcome to the show again, as always.
Looking forward to another good evening.
I don't even know why I keep welcoming you back to the show because you're here every week now. It's great. It's great to have you on the show. We have a great show lined up today. We're going to be talking to Muireann Devaney of Athlone Town on her sophomore season in the league. And she's really gone from strength to strength over the last year or so, made a really big impression on the league. We'll be talking to her about all things Athlone very, very shortly. We'll also hear from the new kid on the block down in Ferrycarrig Park. And that is, of course, their goalkeeper, Maeve Williams. She joins us. She made a bit of a breakthrough last season. She's really made that number one jersey her own this year. We're going to hear all about it later on in the show. But Aaron, we got to start at the weekend. All the results of the games, some absolute crackers. But I think there's really only one place we can start last weekend, and that, of course, is at that big, big game between Shells and Peamount. What happened?
Abby Larkin happened pretty much. What was it? Last 11 minutes, she scored a hat-trick after coming off the bench. Peamount's defence imploded. Probably the best way to describe it. To just let Abby run riot. In terms of the opening goal, penalty from Jess Stapleton. Bit of a contentious one. Is it a penalty? Is it a free out? My guess is probably a free out, but you know.
Yeah, I did go a little bit nuts, I'm not going to lie, on Twitter on Saturday afternoon. We've been talking about referee decisions the week before, and we watch all the games every week. I dip in and out of them. I kind of jump around between them, and I was watching the Shells Peas game, and it looked to me as if I can't remember what player it was specifically had her foot up for the challenge and knocked the ball off the Peamount arm, but I just thought it was a high foot. I played it back, and I'm like going, her head, the ball, and the foot are virtually in the exact same position before it comes off the foot onto the arm. And I just thought, I think there's a case for a free out there. And as I looked, I just got frustrated watching it. The referee, and I thought, wasn't great. They did pull it back later when maybe they could have gone another way with the last goal for Abby Larkin. But at that point, the game was done. And as I jumped around the rest of the games to the evening, we're going to talk about referee in a bit. I just felt there was a couple of really, really, really poor decisions made, and I just noticed that jumping from game to game. I didn't study any of them overly. We'll talk about refereeing again. Let's talk about the incident. Jessie Stapleton steps up, slats the penalty away, and really, they never really looked like getting back into the game, Peamount, in my opinion. What are your thoughts?
No, they didn't, and that's the sort of thing about them. When you look at Anya O'Gorman was missing as well. I think she was ill. So for them, it's a massive loss considering she's their top scorer. They brought in young Michelle Doonan up top. Didn't really have the success she would have wanted. And once you go 1-0 down, they're sort of chasing the game, and they've struggled this season when they're chasing games. That's when teams seem to get the better of them when they go a goal down. When they go a goal up early on, they're good. They're able to do it, but they just didn't seem like they could. They get back into it. And when Shell strung the bench, you sort of thought, it's only going to go one way as soon as Abby scores a second, and then they pile on the misery to Peamount. Considering when the sides met roughly around this time last year, there's a 9-goal swing because Peamount won the game 5-0 when that stage. And I think for Peamount, it's another disappointing result. I think on Noel's point of view, he was just happy to walk out of PRL Park. He'd have taken a 1-0 win out all day long and just said, let's go on to the next one.
Yeah, 3 points in the bag. Abby Larkin, though, we've talked about her a bit on the show. She's been impressive in the little bits we've seen of her this season. But that cameo on Saturday, with the quality of opposition she was up against, like Peamount are, regardless of the current league position, they are one of the best sides in the league and have been over the last decade. To pop up with a hat-trick in that 10 or 11-minute span, she's got to be happy with that in terms of an impact in the league.
First senior hat-trick as well in the National League. For someone so young, she's been tipped for high things. We see people talking high about her. Your only concern is there's been times where she's maybe dipped out at games when Nola started her, but anytime he seems to brought her off the bench, she seems to have a massive impact. You look at DLR Waves in Untitled Park, where she come on at half-time, the game is in the melting pot, and she turns it completely, and they run away with a comfortable win. seems to have a better impact coming off the bench at the moment. And I think for herself, she'll need to find that little bit of consistency when she gets to start. With the likes of Jess Sue gone, Saoirse gone, there's opportunities for her, you know. So she's going to get an awful lot more limelight now. Plus, I like
let's not put too much pressure on her. She's still a very young player.
I was going to say, I like the look of Gemma Quinn up top. She's come in from non-league football last year, physical, strong, scored a hat-trick against Treaty. And I think for me, I'd like to see her get a bit of a run in that Shelbourne team up top. I think can offer them something completely different to maybe what they didn't have. And it'll be an interesting one to see if he plays her again against Athlone. Haven't started 2 games in a row, haven't started her. But for Shelbourne, with the players they've lost, they'll be content with the weekend for sure.
In terms of the league title, Shells winning, we'll talk very quickly with DLR and Wexford dropping points. Is it a done deal now? Have Shells wrapped up the title in your opinion?
The problem is, Breifne, we said this before the break when they went so far ahead, and then they come up against Wexford, and all of a sudden they drop points, and it's back to 5. For me, the big hurdle this weekend. If they get over Athlone this weekend, the team who are in second place put a bit more distance between themselves. Then you'd have to say, yeah, probably one hand on the title. But with the players they've lost real quality, so they are going to drop points. And I think for them, it's going to be a case of how do they minimise and make sure they drop as least amount of points as possible when they have that bad performance, because there's no doubt they're going to have a patch maybe where they drop a couple of games. But for them, it's just going to be a case of can they build a gap big enough so that when it does happen. But I'd say probably one hand on it nearly.
Well, we'll hear about that game with Muireann Devaney and her chat later on. She, of course, was in action in the showgrounds last week, just down the road from home. But in the away dressing room with Athlone Town, they left it late. Sligo looked like they might take all 3 points when they opened the score, and after 8 minutes through Gemma McGuinness put a goal for Athlone on the 20-minute mark, put them sides back level, and it was late in the game in the last 5 minutes when they absolutely sealed it. Gillian Keenan popped up with that winner, all 3 points for Athlone, puts them back into second place. Sligo have been really, really impressive winning those tight games and making games that probably on form shouldn't be tight, making themselves really, really hard to score against and therefore to beat.
A pearler of a finish from Gemma McGuinness. Not going to lie, when I seen it, I was like, what have you just done? Lovely curl into the corner. From their point of view, you know, they take the lead and then they squander it so soon to Madison Gibson. And then when Gillian Keenan scores later on, you're probably thinking, oh no, it's Shelbourne all over again. Late goals conceded to lose points. I think Stephen Feeney be extremely disappointed the fact that they didn't get something out of the game. I think from an Athlone point of view, it's job done. It's another away trip ticked off the box. Away from home, their form has been brilliant. I think Gillian Keenan scoring. She's probably been somebody who, when she moved from Treaty, that a lot of things are expected of her. We haven't heard her name as much, and the reason we haven't heard her name as much this season is because of what Emily Corbett's been doing up top. But smashing young footballer and, you know, grabbing the winner for her side will do the world of good for her confidence. And it's somebody's name who we are going to hear an awful lot in the second half of the season as Athlone look to try and solidify that top 3 finish.
I have to say, though, the taste of humble pie has been pretty sweet this week, or bittersweet, should I say, this week. I kind of wrote off Sligo at the start of the season. I genuinely did. And I think in isolation, just purely in results, they've impressed me this year. But I think when you consider where they were on Saturday last week, first choice goalkeeper Kristen Sample's been out long term with an injury. Amy Mahan unavailable. She's made the team of the week across the league at least once, if not twice, this year. She's been super impressive so far. Their third choice goalkeeper, or possibly even fourth choice goalkeeper, played her Women's National League debut, Farah McDonough, to come in as that far down the roster and keep a team who are a number of places ahead of you level until that stage of the game. I have to say she deserves all the credit in the world, and I think it shows the strength that Sligo have built in that squad, because they've brought those players through and they've really developed them over the last few years through the underage system, and hats off to them. It's great to see them. I know I was involved in Sligo in the past, but I think it's great to see those girls coming through and really actually making an impact and proving that they're good enough to be at that level and to develop and become good enough to stay at that level over the next few years and months. Other games, of course, that we mentioned, DLR Wexford, both dropped points, 0-0 draw. 2 of my favourite goalkeepers in the league at the moment. We're going to hear from one of them later on the show, Maeve Williams. Eve Badana has impressed me for a couple of seasons now in the league. Obviously, she's won an international cap maybe 8-10 years ago now, back in the international team. It really, for me, was a battle of 2 goalkeepers, but then I would say that being a former paid-up member of the Goalkeepers Union.
Yeah, but the thing is though, Breifne, it was, and you got to say that there was some very good saves, and I think from a DLR's point of view, that's 3 draws and a bounce in them for someone who's looking to get a little bit of consistency and looking to see can they push up. That's not probably what they would have wanted. On the other side, Wexford Youths back to back draws, and I think for either side, the result probably isn't what they would have wanted. Both would have wanted 3 points, but just on your point about Aoife Dana, like there's a reason why Aoife Dana is in that international squad, and we've seen it time after time and what she's doing. And as we'll hear about from Maeve later, like Maeve has that sort of ambition as well. And I think the goalkeeping in the Women's National League is this year. There's been some good individual displays at times from some very good young goalkeepers as well. And I think that's something worth recognising. You look even the likes of Rachel Kelly at Bows as well, and that's what we have to. It's exciting to look forward from, and then from a DLR point of view, a home game, they've struggled quite a bit at home. They haven't necessarily got the results they would have wanted at home. I think they've only had one standout win at home, and that's the win against Shelbourne. But then again, they didn't back it up a couple of days later. And every time you see them at home, you sort of think, you look back to the Peamount game, should have had it dead and should have had it wrapped up. Shouldn't have conceded late on, struggled to score against Bows. I don't know if it's a case that the Bowl just maybe this season hasn't been their lucky charm, because it's not somewhere where they've got regular results. And I think Graham would be disappointed from that. From a Stephen Quinn point of view, with the way things were going with the other game and the other game that in the evening with Peamount and Shelbourne, he would have known nothing short of a win was good enough, and Athlone overtook them because of the fact that Athlone got the win earlier in the day. And I think they'll be a little bit disappointed coming back down the road that they only come away with 1 point.
Yeah, of course, Chloe Darby, Rebecca Cook and Aoife Robinson on target for Bows as they managed a 3-0 home win against Treaty United. I had a bit of a suspicion that maybe the second goal offside, you've had a look at it since, it probably wouldn't have affected the game in the grand scheme. Bows were stronger than Treaty on the day, but it might have just killed off the game at that half hour to go stage when maybe Treaty could have got a chance, maybe created something. Aisling Meany was very busy for them. A couple of other impressive players as well with Treaty on the day. But those kind of refereeing decisions, those 50-50s that go the way of, I suppose, the dominant team or the home team, it's tough to take when you're battling away from home.
Yeah, it is. I had a look at it, and I think for me, it's hard to see just because of the way the camera is. But I think if we take it away, we can't take away from Rachel Doyle making her debut to pass. The two newbies, Niamh Pryor with the ball into Rachel Doyle, and then Doyle with the pass into Rebecca Cook, who's slots at home well. And I think Aoife Robinson's goal is probably the pick of them, the third of them. But Chloe Darby also scores a smashing goal. I think from a Treaty point of view, yeah, if that goal's disallowed for offside and it's 1-0 later on, may give them a little bit of hope. But I think for them, it's really tough. You're right, the likes of Aisling Meany, when they have players who are working hard, they're just not getting the breaks or they're not getting a bit of luck. It can be a bit deflating. And I think the best thing is, I listened to an interview with Donna Reardon last week where Donna's remaining positive, and that's the most important thing, is that he's remaining positive and he's trying to encourage the girls that he's seeing things in training and stuff like that. And I think that's, from a Treaty point of view, is really, really important, because it's so easy for them just to get deflated, demoralised. The only result they picked up this season is the draw with Sligo. So, it's a hard one for them. They haven't got a lot to play for, but they've got a lot of young kids, and a lot of these kids are going to learn an awful lot from this season. Maybe they're in a position where Athlone were a couple of years ago, where Athlone were getting battered out of the gate by most teams, and then we've seen what they've come on to do. Do I think Treaty have the players to do what Athlone have done? Probably not, but they'll definitely learn an awful lot from these games this season. And I think if they can stay united for the remainder of the season, hopefully they'll be able to grow on it. But it's been a tough season for them. I think for Bows, the fact that they've got 3 wins and the bounce as well is massive for them. They haven't done that in the National League either, so that's sort of setting that little bit of form for them with a difficult fixture this weekend.
Yeah, of course. Looking at the last game of the weekend, Galway, we talked about Shell scoring 3 in the last 11 minutes. Well, it was the first 10 or so minutes of the game. Galway blew Cork away in those first 10 minutes, 3-0 up after 8 minutes. Only one winner from that point on. A couple of girls getting their first strikes for Galway. Bryce Reynolds. Another I question the offside decision on. I think Chloe Singleton got a touch. I think Bryce was offside. Referee didn't give the free out, awarded the goal. And effectively, that was the second goal after 6 minutes, and it was just the end of the game. Ciara McNamara had opened the scoring, and after 2 minutes, Jamie Erickson won on 8 minutes, and then Lindsay McKee got 2 late on after Laura Shine had pulled one back early in the second half. Lindsay McKee, of course, what's notable about those 2 particular goals for you, Aaron? I know you like a good trivia question.
It's just Lindsay. It's just Lindsay.
Well, you've actually just put it exactly on the point. Lindsay McKee, her first 2 goals of the season, she becomes the 3rd player to have scored in every single season of the Women's National League by virtue of those 2 strikes. So congratulations to her. I know it won't mean a whole pile. It's the 3 points. It's the win. It's getting back up in touch with those teams in the top half of the table, and Galway will be quite happy with that. But from that point of view, Cork, they did pull one back, but again, I turned this game off after about 15 minutes to watch the highlights later on because it was game over. It wasn't a contest once the first 3 goals went in. I thought, I'm surprised it was only 5 based on the first 10 minutes, if that makes sense.
Do you know what? It sort of had me thinking straight back to the previous week in the FAI Cup when I was at the Bows of Galway game, and you're checking your phone and you're seeing Peamount 3-0 up after 10 minutes against Finglas, and then you think more and more and more, and I was sort of thinking, I don't want to see this to be a cricket score, and it could have easily got away from Cork a lot more than it did. And I think from Danny Murphy, you'd be extremely disappointed with the fact that they'd shipped so many so early on. They would have had a game plan and they would have had something. But I do think you're right in terms of the second goal. Potentially, it is offside, but it's one of them that it's only when you see the replay back that from the angle that you realize it's the problem. The problem here is that like
it was also close to goal. It was also close to goal as well. It's so hard to tell. I didn't mention actually earlier, Madison Gibson got her first goal. It was the first goal for Athlone the other day. We better give her credit. Welcome to the league, Madison. Not a bad way to get your debut, setting up the equalizer, scoring the equalizer, and setting up the win for Athlone on Saturday afternoon. I'm sure it won't be your last in the league. In terms of, I suppose, the big talking point for me anyway, these coming out of the weekend, we've touched on it a few times, those offside decisions. And for me, encapsulated by the decision in injury time, it's 0-0 in the bowl, DLR Wexford, and there's been a couple of decisions either way. You take them, whatever. The ball's played forward, and Katie Malone in her own half with clearly a player goal side. Either one of those things more than enough to keep her onside, and 40 yards she runs down the pitch after the ball, and when she gets to it one-on-one to beat the one player to get on one-on-one with the keeper, the ref pulls it back for offside. And to make matters worse, Maeve Williams takes the goal kick from the edge of the box, or the free kick from the edge of the box. Like, so if the foul was back where it was supposed to have happened, the free should have been from the halfway line, not from the edge of the box. It was just the inconsistency. And I think nobody minds a bad referee as long as they're consistently bad, but you need to be equally bad for both teams, if you know what I mean. But there needs to be a level of consistency. We see bad refereeing anecdotes, to be fair, in the League of Ireland. I'll take them all with a pinch of salt because they've come from a team that feel they've been wronged. But when we see it so regularly in the Women's National League, is there a problem? Is there a shortage of referees? Is there how are these referees appointed? Is it down to local officials? Are they all hometown appointees? Because
no.
We hear this criticism from time to time, and I don't want to be too harsh on referees.
I'll give you an example. I'm going to use the Sligo game for an example. Sean Stevenson was the fourth official. So Sean, I think it's Stevenson. Apologies if I got his name wrong, but I had a look at it. He's refereed games in the National League in Dublin. So as far as I know, it's because there's been times where we've had League of Ireland referees. So I assume it is a National League panel that gets sent there. I do have a criticism on referee appointments, and it's something that's annoys me, and it's annoyed me for the last couple of years. Is I would like to see the FAI come out and start releasing the referee officials on a Thursday evening or a Wednesday evening, same way when they send out the League of Ireland First Division and Premier Division email they send them out. I would like to see the Women's National League ones being included on it, because then you know who it is. There's times where you're going chasing who's the referee today just to see you. And the problem is some referees, it's not as much now, but it was more in the previous couple of years. Like some referees, you know, they get a bit of the hump with players when players constantly talking back to them and stuff like that. It's not as much now with the fact that some of these players have either grown up or gone off or done things, so that they're not in the league anymore. So, but in terms of appointments, it's some of its decisions are just shocking at times. I think we look back at the more you look back at the Galway penalty last week, the more I look at it, the more I say absolutely no way, it's not a penalty. Then you look at that, and I think we got to give credit to the referee in the Peamount and Shelbourne game, because we look at the goal, I think it's the fourth goal where they're claiming offside, and they see it perfectly that Karen Duggan steps up and just allows Abby right in behind. And you know, when they do things right, we're the first 100%. To say
in real time, I could fully understand the referee getting that wrong and giving a free kick, because she's about 5-6 yards behind the last player when the ball gets to her. When the referee turns their attention to where Abby is, I could 100% understand giving it. The referee's got it spot on, and she was well onside. She was 5-6 yards onside, and so credit where it's due. I'm not saying they're bad all the time, but we just need to be, the ups need to be less up and the downs need to be less down, if that makes sense. It just needs to be a more consistent performance. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, let's move on. Let's catch up with Athlone Town's Muireann Devaney. Myself and Aaron sat down with her earlier today to have a chat with her about how her season has been going. Muireann Devaney of Athlone Town, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
One of those rare players we have on the show more than once so far. I'm sure that will change in the future, but welcome to the two-timer club here, although we're not accusing you of anything, but you haven't two-timed us anyway. You're back with us. But listen, it's been a fantastic season for Athlone. It's been really good to watch their progress this season. Of course, you've been pivotal to that, along with the likes of Emily Corbett and plenty of others, Kelsey Monroe, of course, who also would have come through the ranks at Sligo, albeit not with you, but now you're playing together at the same time. What has the season been like from your point of view, kind of getting into that stride and really challenging now at the top end of the table?
Yeah, look, it's been really good. I suppose last year was very difficult. You know, we were getting hammered in matches, I suppose you could say. And look, it's a big change this year. We're competing with the best teams, and I think, you know, some of the best teams would even fear playing us. So that was our main aim at the very start, to take points off the big teams. And look, we've only done it against Peamount, but I think we're making good progress, and you know, we're going in the right direction. So it's good. The mood is good in the camp too. And look, the girls are playing together and we're playing well. So big game on Saturday. So hopefully we can keep up the good performances.
What's changed? Like, no disrespect to the Athlone squad, but it's not like you've gone and signed a brand new squad. So many players played there last year when you were being beaten by teams. So what's changed this year?
I suppose not a huge pile has changed. I suppose, you know, you're not going to be the best team in the league when you're only starting off, and Athlone are only this is the third season now, so we were never going to be the best team the first year, the second year, and we're finding our stride now. I suppose like the likes of Wexford and Shelbourne and Peamount, they've been there a while. They've been there a long time, I suppose, and they've had their team together a while. So look, this is our third year with more or less the exact same players. So we're getting used to each other. We're training every week together, and look, we're finding our bond now, and we're playing well together. So I suppose it's just the matter of, you know, sticking together and working hard.
Looking at the squad, I suppose this year, the one big difference I've noticed looking in from the outside at least, is the kind of the rise of Emily Corbett, and being able to find the back of the net on a regular basis is something that maybe Athlone missed. I know you had the likes of Caitlin Keogh over the last season or two, but she seemed to be playing on the wing a lot, and maybe not quite as much of a finisher as she would have been in the underage leagues. But Emily coming in and finding form and being able to find the back of the net regularly must kind of give that solid base that Athlone have always been based on, that little finishing power at the top end to kind of turn games from 0-0s to 1-0 wins.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose if you're not scoring goals, the chances of you winning games are very slight, and we didn't score enough goals in the previous seasons. And look, we've got Emily up top now, along with Gillian and Roshan as well, and on occasions. So Emily's well able to score goals, and I think she showed that you're not one of the top goal scorers in the league for no reason. She's she's one of the best strikers in the National League, and I think anybody would agree with that. So.
But like even on in terms of your scoring goals, like you look at Emily scored superb goals, but you're the second best in terms of defensive. Only Shelbourne have conceded less goals as well from you, which is massive because you've seen the last couple of years the likes of Bowes, yourselves, Cork at times, Treaty conceding buckets loads of goals, but to be the second least goals conceded in the league, it must be it's a big achievement.
Yeah, it is, and look, it's again, it's something we set out at the start of the year to do, concede less goals, and we had a lot of heavy beatings last year, and that was our main aim, was to bring them down. Look, some people might say we don't play nice football or it's not the prettiest, but I don't think too many can complain at the moment, because why would you change something that's working? I think Tommy has a good strategy there, and he makes us work hard, and not too many teams come to Athlone and go away with an easy victory. So look, that's our main goal as a team, that we go out every time and we work together, and look, no team gets as easy against us. So we put in the tackles, we'd like to commit to everything, and I think it's working for us at the moment.
Yeah, I think people do like to see a nice game, but as you said, it's a results business, and it's all about the result at the end of the day when you're playing senior competitions, so the league table doesn't lie. From your own point of view, Muireann, I suppose, obviously I've had the pleasure of watching you kind of develop through the Gaelic football as well in County Leitrim here, where we're both based, but you seem to have stepped away from the county football this year to concentrate on soccer, probably because you had a bit of some small thing called the Leaving Cert. Not that big a deal in most people's lives. But how do you manage to keep it all going? And did that choice to maybe not get as involved as you were in previous years with the County Leitrim setup, has that helped your football and your studies?
Yeah, look, it was definitely a very tough decision. I made it quite early in the year, because you can't make halves of yourselves, and look, you have to give the Leaving Cert a good go too. Look, that's the rest of your life that you're looking towards, and I wanted to give soccer a good go now. The under-19s were finished, so the Irish team, the under-19s. So your next aim is the senior team, and you don't get called into that just easily, or by on-off performances. You got to be performing week in, week out. So I thought I was going to have to just give it all to one sport this year. So I chose Athlone. We wanted to go make strides, so I decided that was the best decision for this year, to focus on the Leaving Cert and focus on my soccer as well. So it was a tough decision, but look, I have no regrets, and I was happy with the decision.
Do you have a little bit of maybe when you talk about under 19s football, do you have a little bit of a regret? Maybe you just didn't capitalise on what happened in Limerick last year with the crowds and the performances you put in. You just didn't get the results that probably led to a tougher group where you could have potentially made the European Championships if you had won that group last October.
Yeah, look, we could have messed it up a bit on ourselves. Like, all 3 games were there for the taking, and unfortunately we didn't get the rub of the green. It was a great occasion though, and the games were unbelievable to play in. The crowds were class, and it was an unbelievable experience. But unfortunately it didn't go our way, and we ended up facing France in the qualifiers, which was always going to be a very difficult task, and unfortunately we couldn't get over it.
In terms of obviously your own situation, Leaving Cert done now, what's next? Where are you planning on heading? Does the future hold for you? How's that going to impact your current role at Athlone? Or is it?
I suppose we'll not know till the 2nd of September when the results are out, I guess. And I've made no decisions yet. We'll see what the results bring. And look, I'd love the opportunity to get away from home and experience life away from Leitrim a wee bit further, or in a bigger city or that. And if that's close to Athlone, you'd never know. I could be staying there, or it could be a bit further afield. Who knows?
Sure, here, Breifne, she's travelling from Leitrim to Athlone as it is, so it's not really a big.
I just heard her say a bigger city, because no matter how much there's obviously a city in North Leitrim there, just on that road between the 2 other metropolises of Sligo and Enniskillen. It's just there in the middle of those 2 things. Muireann, in terms of, I suppose, what's the rest of the season? You've just come out a nice win in the first round of the FAI Cup. You played against a junior side, Whitehall Rangers. A strange venue. I know it's a bit of a weird approach to to the field up there in North Dublin. But very comfortable 7-0 win in the end, leaves you 2 games from the Aviva.
Tallaght Stadium.
The league's, apologies, Tallaght Stadium, I better get that right. What I want to ask about really is, I suppose, the league looks to be headed towards shells given the way the results have gone in the last few weeks. And I think nobody in Athlone would have been anticipated been involved in a league title race. But second place is there, I suppose, really to challenge for over the closing stages of the season. But you're looking at maybe the draw for the next round of the Cup, and you're looking at maybe 2 games from that final appearance. Is that a target for you? Have you spoken about that internally in the club?
Yeah, definitely. It was another goal at the start of the season that we wanted a good cup run. And look, at if you were to say we were going to be second in the table at the very start, we would have took it no problem. And yeah, it probably is Shelbourne's now to lose at this stage. They're not 9 points ahead of everybody else for no reason. They're the best team in the league, and that's just it. But we'll keep fighting. We have them on Saturday. If we could take 3 points off them, it could become a bit more of a race. And we'll play them again later in the year. And everything's still there for the taking. It's not won till it's won. And then the cup again. Okay, we have Cork first. We're not looking past that. We only scraped a 1-0 win against Cork there recently. They're improving every game too. So we're not looking anyway past Cork. If we get past Cork, happy days, and we'll look on then. But it's all eyes on Cork first.
You talk about Shelbourne. You've huffed and puffed against them. It's been late goals here, late goals there. Same with Wexford. That sort of caused you defeats where you've been so close. How much do you take out confidence you take from that run where you went on early in the season where you'd won the 6 on the bounce and you were really competitive even in the game that ended the run against Wexford where you lost 2-1 with down in Ferrycar? How much do you take out of all that?
Yeah, look, you definitely take great confidence from it, but we want to start taking points off the likes of Wexford now and Shelbourne. We've done it against Peamount, and it really lifted the spirit around Athlone, and we got another boost of confidence. But then we lose again to Wexford, and we have lost to Wexford now for the last 3 years, and we've never scored against Shelbourne. So yes, we're beating the likes of Treaty, Sligo, DLR, but we want to beat Wexford and Shelbourne and the likes of those teams. They're the best teams in the league, and we want to be the best team in the league, so we got to beat them. So hopefully Saturday will tell the tale.
I just want to follow up with something here quickly. Your defeats this season, majority of them have come at home. Away from home, you've been brilliant. You've had some great results. You beat I think if you asked anybody about the Peamount result, everybody would have said, was it in Athlone? But away from home, you sort of seem to go onto that team bus and just have no fear wherever you go now.
Yeah, I suppose if you should ask me, I would have said we play better when we're at home, but I suppose we lost to Wexford and Shelbourne in the first 2 or 3 games at home, and they were very poor performances. We kind of let ourselves down, but then we picked ourselves up again, and we've got some good results. So we're playing them now on a streak that we're going well. So hopefully we can get after it on Saturday.
You might just explain the dynamic, Muireann, to people who might not be familiar with it in terms of how you end up at clubs that you're at. Because obviously you went to Athlone at a time when you needed to be playing senior football to progress your international prospects. Sligo didn't have a team. You came out of their underage ranks. Then they bring a team in. And in women's sports, more so than men's, people tend to stay in teams and not necessarily go straight back. Money is less of a factor as well because nobody's really getting paid anything over maybe a little bit of mileage expenses, which at the price of diesel now or petrol now is probably not even covering the cost. So what's the main dynamic involved in deciding where you're going to play from one season to the next? Is it about the group of girls you're playing with? Is it about the level that they're playing at? Is it about the coaching staff, the facilities? What's the major factors in how you make that decision? And I suppose I'm not trying to make you kind of tell us where you're going to be next year in terms of whether it's Athlone or elsewhere, but you're looking at other options. What are the main factors that come into your head?
Well, I suppose you speak to the manager and you see what they bring and see why they want you or what they can offer you. I spoke to Tommy after 2 years ago about coming into the Athlone team, and he just sold it to me, just leaps and bounds. Like it sounded brilliant, and I have absolutely no regrets going to Athlone. It's very enjoyable. Tommy's understanding. He's a very good manager, by all accounts. And it's kind of just where you prefer to go. Like some people would have said, the Shelburnes, the Peamounts, they stand out. You got to get to a better team, but you got to be ensuring you're playing week in, week out. And I thought Athlone would be a good place for me to start off. I didn't want to make too big of a jump to too big of a team where you'd be sitting on the bench every week. So no, it's been working well. I'm playing every week, so if I can keep that up, I'll be happy for another while.
Is that mold starting to break in terms of everybody having to go to Shelburne and Peamount? Because we're seeing more and more players going to different clubs around the country now.
Well, Aisling Meaney, just to add to that, Aisling Meaney told us a couple of weeks ago why she ended up at Treaty, because she just wanted to play every week and be guaranteed to get her game, and that's why she went there rather than maybe back to her traditional home of Galway Women's.
Yeah, I think like every girl will tell you, there's no enjoyment from sitting on the bench every week. And even if you are playing with a lesser team and you're playing, it's better than being on the sidelines. So you enjoy it when you're playing, and that's the main thing.
You mentioned about leaving home and getting a chance to maybe fly the nest a little bit in the next few months when college does come on the cards for you. But of course, I bumped into you at the weekend at a Gaelic football game where you're out supporting. You played in the morning with the local team, Glencar Manor, of course, county champions the last 2 years. You look to be in the squad again this year. Are you fully in with that? Because there seems to be a great bunch of girls there that you all seem to enjoy playing.
Yeah, there is definitely, and again, as I said at the start, I didn't do the county this year. Soccer is my main goal, and getting on a good cup run with Athlone is the main priority now for the near future. I'll obviously be playing with Glencar Manor whenever I can, or when there's a break in the season at weekends and stuff. But I'm with Athlone now, and we're aiming big. So you got to give a main priority to something, and at the moment that's Athlone. So I will commit myself to Glencar Manor too, and any day I can help them out or I'm available to play, I'll play. But at the moment, the good cup run and finishing the league on a high is my main goal.
You just mentioned the Gaelic football trend there. Can I ask about Tommy? Because you have players who are playing Gaelic football with other inter-county as well. Talk to me about how good it is to have a manager who has an understanding that players are dual athletes as well. Because others you see with sports, that other clubs that sort of told it's one or the other.
Yeah, I can't praise Tommy enough. From since I joined Athlone, he's definitely one of the most understanding managers I've ever played with, and I don't think there's too many of them in the National League. But I think it's paying off in his favour. Like the girls have huge respect for him, and if you tell Tommy you have a Gaelic match on whatever day or that, he'd work around it too. Of course, you have to respect him and his team and what he's trying to do, but we do, and I think that's why we're progressing as well as we are. The Gaelic brings a bit of physicality to the team, a bit of that hard work and never die attitude, and I think it's shown when we go onto the field. We've a lot of Gaelic players in the team, and I think we're such a tight knit group because Tommy is so understanding, and you can tell him anything, and he'll work around it, or he'll definitely try his best with it.
Speaking of, I suppose your relative geographical closeness to Sligo, you got the opportunity to play in the showgrounds in the senior WNL game for the first time last weekend. You left it late, but you did come away with all 3 points. That late winner. Thoughts on the game?
Well, credit where it's due to Sligo. They put on a great performance, and the atmosphere that they bring around. It's definitely one of the best. It's the best place in the National League to play. Credit to them. It's very enjoyable going out there onto the best pitch in the National League, I think. But yeah, left it very late, but had most of the possession, I thought, and played relatively well. Not sure if Tommy would agree, but yeah, we left late, but all 3 points is what we got, so we're happy with that.
There's a few people around Sligo taking hold of those compliments going, she hasn't burnt any bridges down here just yet. It might be a few years before they see you back, but maybe in the future you'll be in that bit of red. In terms of everything else, Muireann, this weekend, of course, big game, cup games to follow as well. What's the plan for the rest of the season?
Obviously, we look towards Saturday, and we respect Shelburne and give them all the respect they deserve. As I said, they're not 9 points clear for no reason. They are currently the best team in the league, and they deserve to be where they are. But I'd say nobody gives us a flying chance on Saturday, and hopefully we can prove a few people wrong. We've nothing to lose, and we're looking to get at it. And then, a top 3 finish is what our main aim is. Take points off Wexford and Shelburne at some stage, hopefully, and a good cup run. Look at if we got to the Tala Stadium, I think it'd be a pretty good year for Athlone Town. But we look to each game as they come.
Well, listen, on that note, Muireann, we'll let you go. But thanks so much for joining us, for giving us a few minutes of your time this afternoon, and the very best of luck on Saturday. And you never know, bigger shocks have happened this season.
Hold on. Is it a shock, though?
Not anymore.
I don't think it is anymore. That's the thing. I don't think it is anymore.
Well, would it be a shock to you, Muireann, if you were to beat Shells at the weekend, more importantly?
No, definitely wouldn't beat anybody in Athlone, but the outsiders, I don't know if they're rooting for us or rooting against us at this stage, but hopefully ourselves will get the result.
I think you've earned the respect this year.
Yeah, I think so. And I think everybody is everyone who's not Shelburne is praying that a result happens that maybe just makes the league a little bit more competitive, and if it's yourselves that benefit, so be it. But I think you'll have a lot of neutrals or a lot of girls from other teams watching on, hoping that you can at least nick a point or maybe all 3 off Shells at the weekend, just to keep the league title a little bit more interesting as the season progresses. Muireann, thanks very much for joining us. Best luck Saturday against Shells and for the rest of the season. You never know, we might see it in Tala Stadium come Cup final day. We'll keep our fingers and toes crossed here. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Muireann Devaney, one of the up-and-coming stars of the league. We're going to see lots more from her over the coming years. I can see her being around the league for a long, long time. Aaron, I've seen a lot of her growing up from under 13, under 14 in Leitrim, playing Gaelic football and soccer, dominating games, 2 or 3 age groups ahead of her. She's been someone that we around here have been very aware of coming up through the ranks. From your point of view, how much have you seen of her? What do you think of her in terms of her performances this year and last?
No disrespect intended to Athlone, but there was times last year where you're thinking, how has one of the top clubs not snapped her up? I know from talking to the likes of Sean
second in the league.
I'm talking about last season when, and you're looking at the likes of Shauna Cook talking about her, and she's just like getting battered in the game against Shelburne, and she's still standing out by playing passes and doing this sort of thing. And you start to think to yourself, this is a smashing young talent. And I think this year she's probably taken another leap on from where she was last year. And I think the question you got to ask is, how many gears is there in Muireann? Because there's no doubt about it. She's got the talent, she's got the work ethic, and as she said in the interview with us, she committed to the soccer this year, coming away from the ladies football because of the Leaving Cert. And there's no doubt that's been Athlone's massive benefit this year. They've taken full advantage of her, and she's really playing superb.
Absolutely, I think her physicality is everywhere it needs to be. I think when it all comes together for her, I think the potential to be a really solid international standard player in the future is there for her. She's not that far off it. And I don't want to be critical because I really admire everything she's done, but just the technical ability, when that touch comes in 100% and it's nearly there, I think we're going to see some really, really fantastic.
I'm going to ask you a trivia question now, since you went to me earlier. So I don't know the answer to this, but I'm hoping you will.
That's not trivia. That's just going to show you.
So apart from Dervla Byrne, has there been any other senior internationals from Leitrim?
Define senior. Does the World Student Games count? If so,
say we say full international.
Full international, no. There has not been any other full internationals. But interestingly enough, we do, as a county, I'm going to go my little Leitrim pride bit here. We do actually punch well above our weight in terms of international representation. In 1 year this year, I think I'm going to say 1920, we had 4 players from the county, born, raised, grew up, started their football careers and played most of their careers in the county and represent Ireland at underage level and senior level. Dervla Byrne won an international cap. Alva Clancy went to the World University Games. Niall Moran went to the under-19 European Championships, and Muireann Devaney was player of the tournament at the Bob Docherty Cup. So that's not a bad innings for a population as small as us. We have 2 adult football teams in the county, not clubs, teams in the county. And so we're quite small, but we definitely punch above our weight. Internationals per starting 11 in the county, we do okay. We're going to take a credit on that one. So Muireann is very much part of that success story over the last few years. But anyway, I digress. The Leitrim hat comes off, WNL hat back on. We did also catch up with another member of the up-and-coming grouping in the Women's National League, and that, of course, is the new netminder. Well, we call her new. We did speak earlier. We know she criticizes herself for being old. She's just turned 20. She's one of the bright new talents in the league. Maeve Williams, Wexford Youths. We had a chat with her a little while ago. Maeve Williams of Wexford joins us now. Maeve, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
It has been a strange kind of season for the teams in and around that top of the table, but I suppose for you, it's very different in terms of you've kind of broken into the side and you held your place, and it's been really, really positive for you so far this year. From an outsider looking in, at least, how has it been for you the last 15 or 16 games?
I suppose on a personal note, great. I'm really enjoying the game time I'm getting and the opportunity I have to go and play every weekend. I suppose on a team note, we're disappointed with how we've gotten on, and we know we could be doing better. But you say 15, 16 games, but there's still just as many to go. So I think we're definitely have our eyes set on looking forward, and so do I personally. So as well.
You had to wait a long time as well for opportunities to get a big consistency. But the biggest thing is you've taken that chance this year and sort of shined really well with six clean sheets. You know, you've had some great saves, some great moments for Wexford as well this year.
Yeah, well, I suppose, look, I'm kind of there to do a job, and I'm glad that for the time I've been in, for the most part, I've been able to do it well. I hope anyway. So, yeah, look, I suppose I'm happy with how things are going. And I think I've kind of settled into the team since I came in. Definitely, I felt it took me a couple of games, I suppose, to come into the 11 and to get used to, and I suppose build my own personality on the pitch, and get used to being in such a competitive environment on a Saturday evening. But no, yeah, I'm enjoying it.
You talk about the competition for places, and of course yourself and Keith Gray have had a really good contest there. I suppose you've been putting the pressure on her for a few years. Start of the season, Claudia Keenan comes in to the underage setup. She's an underage international. What was your thoughts coming into the season? Did you know where you lay in the pecking order, and is it worked out how you expected, or maybe was there a fear that maybe the second position, even at the start of the season, might not be there for you?
Yeah, I suppose I didn't know what to expect. I had a great chat with Steve at the start of the year about kind of all of us being on a clean slate and going into pre-season, and I suppose just working towards the new season and forgetting about what's happened before. So I had I suppose I was concentrating on myself and how I got on in pre-season and in pre-season games. Look, Dolly's a great keeper and has bags of experience on me, so I was well aware that I had to bide my time to get into the 11, and that I was confident it would come, but at the same time, I was well aware I had to bide my time. With Claudia coming in then, to be honest, I was excited. Claudia is a brilliant keeper. I've seen her play a couple of times before she signed. I really enjoyed training with her the last, I suppose, how long has it been? 6 months at this stage. Great person to train with, great goalkeeper. Doing really well for our 19 side. Really enjoyed having her beside me on the bench this year and in the squad. I'd say we have a good goalkeeper union going in Wexford, so we all kind of drive each other on. And no, it's I suppose like I said, I didn't know what to expect coming into the season. But look, I suppose this worked out well for me. And yeah, we're happy with what we have.
In the last year or so, was it frustrating at times? Because, it looked as you may have got a chance last year, then it didn't sort of materialise. Was there ever a bit of frustration settling in, having to, settle for playing with the 19s and sitting on the bench for the first team?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose for myself, I like to be ambitious and work towards my own goals. And obviously, a goal of mine has always been to break into the starting 11 with the first team. And it's frustrating, when when I haven't got it yet. But like I said, Dolly's a fantastic keeper, and I was well aware that I had a bit of work to do to get in there, and then not only just to get in there, but to keep my place in there when I got there. So, yeah, look, just suppose had to buy me time. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the club itself. I suppose you're a young player coming through the system and kind of getting to grips with the Women's National League. A little bit of taste of it last year. You really established yourself as the first choice keeper this season. How has it been for you? What's your experience been of the club and the setup and I suppose the way things work down in Ferrycarrig Park?
Yeah, I came into Wexford when I was 15 to start training with the first team. Tom Elms put me in. Straight away, like my first impression, I was blown away by just the quality of play, the professionalism of the whole club and how it works. I went from schoolgirl football and playing Gaelic Cup into this senior environment that was just so immersive. And it was like, when I joined Wexford, it was like a part-time job. It was just, this was it now. I was in with the big girls and I loved it, absolutely loved it, still am. And then I suppose, I played the first season of the Under-17 league. Just had game time after game time. Absolutely loved it. I was training with the two different squads. I had loads of involvement in both. It was great. Played 17s, went on to 19s. 19s, same thing. It's great to have I had so many games as well as having exposure in training with the senior team. And then I suppose this year I chose not to stay inside in the 19 squad on that overage rule. I wanted to concentrate on the first team and thankfully it paid off for me. But the environment in Wexford is just fantastic. It's a real close-knit group between the 17s, the 19s and the first team. And there's a real family feeling in the club and it's great. I've loved it ever since I came in. You
can see how much the senior players, the likes of your Adele Kennedy's, your Kylie Murphys, Nicholas Sinnott, how instrumental they are in creating that culture within the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the three of name there are just absolute legends of the club. Like I look up to them so much and I play beside them every week. Kylie's a fantastic captain.
You don't look up to Nicholas Sinnott. You're very good.
I do. Trust me, I do. She looks down on me. Like Kylie's a fantastic captain. Nicholas an unbelievable leader, and like Adele is an absolute workhorse. And the three of them just set like fantastic examples for younger players coming in. And the likes of that as well. We've very senior players there who are well established, but not quite as experienced as the three girls, but are still setting standards as well. And I suppose the first team is just like a great kind of bit of exposure for the younger girls coming up to what it takes to be such a successful Women's National League player.
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose, what the whole club is about and stuff, we saw that so well at the end of last season. Very little to play for other than a bit of pride on the last game of the season. You went to Shells and you really put it up to them, almost cost them the title in the end of the day. It's such a. I know, Aaron, you had a question you want to ask about this, but before we got to the specific game, like what do you bring to a game like that at the end of the season when there's nothing in it for you, but there's everything for your opponent?
I suppose there's like you said, there's a bit of pride to play for there. It's a game where you kind of go into there's not a lot to be won for ourselves, but it's kind of, I suppose, that ethos in Wexford Youths of hard work and a desire and passion and wearing, it's important that you play for the girl beside you and the girl on your right and the girl on the left. And I suppose we tried to carry that into that game, despite the fact that we hadn't a lot to play for. But I suppose it's a tough one because you're going into the game and you know the situation, but you're trying to put that behind you and work to I suppose play on our own principles and to make it hard for Shelbourne, I suppose.
The funny thing about that night, Breifne in particular, is the fact that they play Wexford a couple of weeks later. Shelbourne a couple of weeks later. Yeah. So the opportunity would have been for them on that night to maybe just say, listen, we'll throw out a couple of youngsters, we've nothing to play for. But the character, and I remember talking to Kylie after the game and she was sort of saying, no, that's not Wexford Youths, that's not what we're about. We wouldn't just go and throw out the kids and say, listen, they'd rather make Shelbourne go and win the league if they're going to win the league. But just on that night, Maeve, maybe take us back to a week, 10 days beforehand. You're leading up to the game, yourself and Dolly are competing for that number 1 jersey, and then all of a sudden, injury strikes, you lose your boat for the game. I know from speaking to people in the club, they said they may have risked one of his if it had been a case that you could have still won the league, but the fact that you couldn't, and Adele Kennedy has to go and go. Talking about the lead up to that.
Yeah, it was a tough one, really. I had a torn quad at the time. Dolly was injured as well. Like you said, if it had been a league decider for us, it might the personnel in goal might have been a small bit different. But we had the cup final in mind the following week, and I couldn't pick a better player to go in the goal. If it wasn't me or Dolly, we couldn't use any of our 19th players. So look, Adele it's just Adele through and through. She'll do a job wherever you want her. And she was actually excellent on the night. So it's just Adele.
I remember walking into Talca Park that night and sort of, the way you get the murmurs from the parents, the usual suspects, and they're sort of saying Adele Kennedy's in goal. I'm just like, get away out of that. You're just telling me a little spoof first, so I'll go up and tell the show. And then I get the teams, and I'm just looking, and I'm like, wow. And I was talking to the Wexford, and they were saying like they couldn't register another goalkeeper because of the FAI, the squad list and size and stuff like that. So, like, it was a mad night. But the thing about it is, you had a late chance to equalise, which would have eventually sent the trophy back to PRL Park after what was already a mental night in terms of the Women's National League. What was it like, watching that and watching what was happening, considering Peamount were going for the title, they were leading, then yous were sort of trailing and putting the pressure on Shelbourne, and the whole night about it, because it was a weird and probably never be repeated again.
Yeah, it was a mad atmosphere, all right. I was sitting up in the stand, and what a place to be at as well in Talca Park on a night like that, and the fans were there with flares and everything, and I was sitting up in the stand refreshing Twitter, trying to see what was going on over in Greenogue, and look, it was just mad. It was, I suppose, it eventually got to a stage in the game when we were thinking, what's going to happen now, and is the trophy in a taxi somewhere, and. But look, I suppose it's a mad night, but I felt a bit like an outsider watching it, I have to say, because I suppose on our part, although we were playing on the pitch in front of me, we hadn't a massive part to play in that.
Talk to me a little bit about that kind of side of the game, because we all see the celebrations and the photographs and videos and highlights and packages, but when you miss out on opportunities and nights like that, and you're on the bench, or you're not even in the matchday squad through selection or injury, how hard is it to deal with that and the kind of the imposter syndrome when you go up to maybe collect a medal and kind of going, like, even though you've been part of the squad and you've absolutely earned it, is that little voice on your shoulder kind of going, yeah, but you didn't play in the final, so it's not your thing, or do you feel part of that on the night?
I think a part of that definitely plays in your mind. For me, with that same injury, I ended up missing the under-19 Shield final that we won that year. I started the game and came off after 4 minutes with my torn quad. So, look, I that would probably be my only really experience with an injury that would take me out of a game like that. Probably my first time ever coming off injured, actually. But look, it's definitely tough. It's bittersweet when you win the game and you're going up to get the medal and you're delighted, but it is bittersweet knowing that you came off the pitch 90 minutes ago. And I suppose from a point of view of sitting on the bench, I've had experience of that the last couple of years with the first team, of going up to collect silverware after playing very minimum minutes in that competition, which is tough in a way. But I have always kind of, like I said, I've always known that I'm still a young goalkeeper and I have to go and bide my time, and these things will come. And it's about kind of, I suppose, like I said, Wexford, we're a family, and it's about all being in it together. So I've never ever made feel by management or by teammates that I was ever any less part of it than any player was on the pitch.
You win the cup last year. You see the stuff that comes out after the cup over was Tegan Lynch on the team sheet? Was she not on the team sheet? Tell me a little bit about that sort of, you've celebrated, you've won the cup, and you've got your medal, and then all of a sudden this comes out. Are we going to be stripped of the cup? Are we not going to be stripped of the cup? What was that couple of days like?
Yeah, it was actually, I suppose, when if you look back at shots of us celebrating on the pitch, and I think the only person that knew at the time that this was going to be an issue was Stephen Quinn, and you can see him on the telly kind of in a small bit kind of apprehensive. But yeah, look, and it was playing on everyone's minds after the game. And in fairness to Shelbourne, the day after the game, they released a statement. Fair dues to him, said that they weren't going to follow it up in any way, and that I was basically congratulating us and saying that was that, and they weren't they were happy to not bring it any further. Which I have to say we were all together actually when Kylie read out that statement from Shelbourne, and fair dues to them, and we had a clap and a drink for them. So yeah, no, I know, massive respect to Shells.
I remember
that,
I remember the confusion in the press box that night, Breifne.
Yeah.
Even Alana, who would have been working for yourselves that night, and we all was like, she's not in our team sheets. We were all texting the club, and the club were like, she was on the original, and then there was a change. It was just madness, and it was one of them that we're sort of thinking, oh no, because they'd done the hard work. Adele Kennedy probably scored the goal of her life, and then you're thinking, oh no, is this cup gonna be taken away? Because realistically, the rules would have stated that there wouldn't have been a replay; it would have just been awarded to Shelbourne.
Well, I suppose the situation is very similar to the first game of the season with Piedmont and Slugger Rovers, where Piedmont self-reported an issue and lost the game, and Sligo had no input into it whatsoever. So it does kind of, I suppose I'm not going to get into it's done now, but it's tough to see kind of that the FAI make a decision on one case in one way, and on a very similar case, albeit different circumstances, in a different way, because the club had the opportunity. So it's slightly weird, but I do respect that. The Shell statement I thought at the time was sheer class. They just came out and said, this is the way we think it should be. We were beaten fair and square. Congratulations to Wexford. I thought it was just a really, really nice touch from them. What I suppose over the last couple of years, you've come into the underage teams, Maeve, and you've worked your way up. You've talked about competition at Wexford, but maybe on a bigger scale, competition across the league. We've seen some really good goalkeeping performances from a range of different quarters this year. Some that we've come to expect over the last few years, and some brand new names to the league. We all know who they are. We're not going to name names because I'll probably get in trouble for forgetting somebody. but your own ambitions in terms of where you go to from here. You're still a young keeper, a decade or more in a goalkeeper's jersey in this league, if you want it. Is there Ireland ambitions there? Is that something you've ever kind of been involved in? Is it on the cards for you? Is it something you'd like to see if that happens in the future?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I suppose it's definitely probably my main ambition. It's a long-term goal of mine. It has been, I suppose, for years, kind of since I came into Wexford. I kind of was in and around underage squads when I was younger. I suppose never really. I felt I never really got in there. Really got in there and set my name in concrete there in the underage squads. But obviously, I realised that to go in to receive a call up or to go into an international squad, that it requires an immense deal of work. And just that these call ups aren't handed out lightly. So yeah, look, I would say it's definitely a goal of mine, 100%, whether that be medium or long term. But I'm well aware that there's a lot of work to do, and that those aren't handed out to anyone. And that it's look, I'm not expecting it tomorrow. Let's just say that.
Just to follow up on Breifne's point, though, with the fact of so many good young keepers coming out of the league, that must drive you on, because we see when the likes of Ellen pop onto the scene, how others want to, get in there as well. So when other goalkeepers start to come through, it must drive you to even want to continue to improve and continue to push yourself as far as you can.
Yeah, definitely. I have to say that the level of goalkeeping in the league has really improved in the last few years, and I've noticed it from playing other teams and watching other games that the standard of goalkeeping is just improving and improving. Yeah, 100%. I see younger keepers coming through, and have massive respect for younger keepers, and a little bit of jealousy sometimes. Like, I see keepers younger than me doing well, and kind of.
Please don't talk about people younger than you. Like,
yes,
I mean, I was nearly retired by the time you were born, so no. You're a
No,
young goalkeeper, trust me. You're in that category.
yeah. But do you know what I mean? No, I have I'm well aware that you know, I can't write anyone off. And everyone is competition, but at the same time, I have massive respect for the other keepers in the league, and the standard has really, really improved. And it's great to play against you know, keepers of such a high level. And call them competition.
Yeah, in terms of the rest of the season, obviously it's tight there for that second place position at the moment. Is there still title hope, or is it really second place what Wexford are aiming for at the moment?
No, I wouldn't say we'd ever settle for second place. I think we really have that kind of never say die attitude. Although we, like I said before, we're really, really disappointed with how the season has gone recently, and kind of, I suppose, from the start. In Wexford Youth, we kind of, I suppose, we like to really push on our expectations and raise standards, and we'd never settle for second place. I think we've made it very difficult for ourselves, and we're really not happy with how things have gone. But you know, there's a lot to go, a lot of games to be played. So yeah, I would say that we're not done yet, but yeah, hopefully we'll drive on, and we'll see how far we can go.
And in terms, I was going to say, in terms of the cup draw as well, you also got a difficult enough draw in the cup as well, and that'll be something that Wexford Youths have a lot of success in recent years. I think they're in the last decade, they're probably the most successful team within the FAI Cup, and you know, that's something you'd be looking to defend, and right or wrong, if you can't win the league title, to at least win the cup. Yeah,
definitely, 100%. That's obviously something in the back of our minds. We played DLR last week, and are well aware we have to play them again in the quarterfinal of the cup, and then again in the league. And it was such a competitive game up in the bowl last week that I think it was in the back of everyone's minds after the game that we weren't going to walk through to semi-finals of the cup, and not that we ever thought that beforehand. Now, in fairness, but we'll have good competition there in terms of defending, I suppose, our title there. I think we like to fancy ourselves in cup competitions, and I'd hope that we can back that up. So that's definitely something we'll be looking to regain again this year.
0-0 in that game, of course, last weekend against DLR. You played them in the cup in a couple of weeks. Another 0-0 one. Might see penalties where, of course, goalkeepers take centre stage. What do you like on the penalty shootouts?
I back myself now. I would, I back myself to score one too. So if it comes along, I'll put my name forward. Okay. Yeah, I will. Yeah, I put my name forward. But
what number would you want to go?
Oh, 5. It's gotta be 5, right?
God, no, couldn't take that pressure. Give me 3 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah, just a match winner. That'll do it. Hopefully we get to see that, maybe even in Tallaght Stadium yet this season. Maeve Williams stepping up to take the match winning penalty in a cup final. It has a nice headline ring to it. Maeve, thanks so much for joining us this evening. It's a great chat to you, and best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
Maeve Williams, one of the talents that I've really enjoyed watching coming through the league this year. Bright times ahead for Maeve in the goals for Wexford Youths over the coming seasons. Now, of course, another round of fixtures this weekend as the league continues to pick up pace. Can Shells get that one hand firmer on that league trophy that they look almost destined to win at this stage? They have 2 games between now and next week's show. They, of course, have a midweek game against Bohemians next Wednesday at 7:45. But before that, they host Muireann Devaney's Athlone Town on Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. Galway WFC and Slugger Rovers, they'll do battle in Terryland, Eamon DC Park, whatever you want to call it yourself. I'm showing my age. Both those games at 2 p.m. on Saturday, while Treaty United and Peamount and Cork City and DLR will do battle at 5 p.m. and 6 o'clock kickoff, Wexford Youths versus Bohemians. So any of those whittle your fancy, Aaron, which one would you be tuning into yourself?
I'll be going to Shelburne Athlone. I think it's the tie it around for the weekend for me, first versus second. Athlone have been sort of pushing to potentially get a scalp against Shelburne or Wexford. They haven't done either yet, so I think they'll be looking to see how they can get on. I think this will give us a real understanding of where Shells are going to be, because Athlone are coming into this on the back of it. If Shells can pick up 3 points against Athlone, 3 points against Bows midweek, that really sets that standard, and it really, really does put one hand potentially on that cup. So I think that's probably that's the game for me, the interesting one. I do like the look of the Wexford Bows, because I just think the fact that Bows have got a couple of additions. They played together last weekend. You look at Niamh Purr come off the bench and Rachel Doyle started, plus Katie Bird has come back from injury. You may have one or two more back from injury as well. So like, if Bows had to get to really push on the second half of the season, this is the sort of game where you'd like to see them really, really be competitive. It'll tell us where they are. Wexford, from the other point of view, will just be looking to put last week aside. But of the weekend games, they're probably the ones that do really entail me. But the midweek game between Shells and Bows is the most interesting one. When they played last season midweek, it was 3-2 to Shells, and like I think it was in 98 or 99 minute, a little bit of contention in Talca Park, and I suspect there'll be a bit of a raunchous atmosphere on Wednesday evening. It'll be a bit hostile for Bows, and I think the Shells will try to do that. I think the fact that they've got the Duncondra end, the Ballybock end open now for people to stand behind the goal as well. The goalkeepers won't like that either. Rachel Kelly coming back to her old club as well may get a little bit of jeers here and there, but you know, there's some big games coming up this weekend, and I think it's one where we'll see an awful lot from sides. Like even Cork City. Cork will be looking to bounce back. I'm sure they'd have targeted the DLR Wales game. Danny Murphy was happier with the Athlone performance, but maybe not happy with the one last weekend. So we'll get a little bit of indication as to where they are the second half of the season. But yeah, all games, there'll be some, no matter what game you do decide to go to, there'll be some cracking goals and some cracking entertainment at the weekend's games.
Any chance Rebecca Cook is going to be getting some texts off Peamount players for doing them a favour next in the reverse after she got the same from Shell's players earlier in the season?
She might be getting some text messages from Shell where players saying, "You don't dare do that" on Wednesday evening.
I definitely know she's getting those text messages. Final piece before I let you go. I heard on the radio today, of course, big news. FIFA has come out. The WSL, the League 1 is in FIFA this year. You can be your favourite women's national or women's Super League side. Thoughts on that? Can we expect to see the WNL sides in here in the future? Or is that a little bit further down the road?
Probably a bit further down the road. You know, the funny thing is, I actually had a conversation with my little sister earlier. I was like, so it'll be interesting if you can go the career mode, if you could be a women's team manager and then swap to it. Well, how that'll work. So I think it's great that they've added them in. We'll see a couple of Irish players in as well with the WSL club. I think that's brilliant. Hopefully they'll get some additional income from the revenue from actually having their faces in the game. I think it's a positive step forward for the women's game, absolutely. And it gives massive coverage. EA is a massive brand. You know, they've been making FIFA for so long, and I think that the adding of the women's WSL clubs and other leagues is great. We know they've had the international teams in for the last couple of years, which has been quite popular as well. It's good to have that different variety and that different opportunity there as well. But yeah, I think it's good. You know, I think it's positive, and I think it's great for the women. It's the fact of, I know I've seen on social media that the likes of America and Canada have had previous years where they've maybe put a female player on the front cover when the internationals been there. But Sam Kerr's on the official global cover, the Chelsea and Australia player, which is brilliant huge for the women's game to see a face like that being put on. I remember actually being in Kings Meadow when Sam Kerr made her WSL debut for Chelsea. Grace Maloney happened to be sent off that day against Chelsea for Reading when she took Sam down for a penalty, and you could see how much the Chelsea fans adored her. And I think for anybody who goes to watch the likes of WSL football, you can see how much it is. The Euros as well is giving a big portray of the brand of the women's game. And like, even for us back home, the fact that TG Carr announced 10 games will be shown live on television, starting off with Slugger Rovers. They're going around the country this year, where last year everything was predominantly in Dublin. They had 2 games in Peamount, two in Shelbourne, and where now they're spacing it out a little bit more. And I think the more coverage the women's games gets as a whole, the better, and the more it'll help to grow it.
Yeah, it looks great. 10 games, of course, to be screened live on TG Carr. Some fixture changes, some minor fixture changes over the course of the rest of the season. I hope that if the Sligo Shells game that starts the coverage is any bit as good as the first tie, the 1-0 late winner from Kiva Keenan back a couple of weeks ago, if it's as good as that game, I think it's going to be an absolute cracking match.
The one that broke the Slugger Rovers' hearts.
Hearts, absolutely. Let's before we wrap up, we'll just take a quick look at the statistics of the Women's National League as it stands ahead of the weekend's games. Here is there we go. There is the top scorers in the league so far. Anya Gorman, of course, still leads that strikers tally with 16 goals in her 15 appearances so far. Emily Corbett one behind on 15 with Stephanie Roach on 11 and Ella Malloy also on double figures. And then in terms of the actual league table, Shells, as you mentioned, 8 points clear at the top of the table from Athlone. Wexford 1 point further back, with Peamount and Galway making up the top half of the table. It's interesting times ahead. That's all we have time for today.
Just before we do go, a quick one just for our listeners. Just be aware that before we are out next week again, next Tuesday, Ireland versus Finland tickets go on sale. So they're gonna go quickly. There's gonna be a massive demand for them. So if you want them, I'd advise you to buy early and get your tickets, because we won't have any to give away, unfortunately, and they will be in high demand.
Absolutely. Well, listen, from us, for myself and Aaron, once again, thank you very much for joining us. To Maeve Williams and Muireann Devaney, two up-and-coming stars in the Women's National League, thank you so much for giving us your time. And obviously, as ever, we appreciate all of the guests on the show. We'll be back again. We're going to go a day later. We'll be back on Thursday next week at 8 p.m. We're trying to avoid the European Championships. We're trying to avoid Love Island. We're trying to avoid Shells v Bows. We'll try and bring you everything on the Women's National League in a place where you're available to get it. Anyway, that's us. Enough rubbish out of our mouths this week. We'll be back with you next week again.